Hey everybody, welcome to Groovy Tunes. It's been a while since I've done a video. My name is Wild Bill and I'm trying to catch up here. I used to do videos from my sofa and I always wanted to have these bookcases with some cool groovy stuff as a backdrop, and now I have it set up the way that I want. Um, Obviously I'm here to talk about Charlie Watts, his recent passing. That was a huge blow. I know the guy was old. He was 80, but as I recall on that day, my girlfriend was coming down the stairs, and she's saying, all she said was Charlie Watts, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I know he's gone. And I know he went in for a procedure, and that's the thing about this age. It's like Mick has had heart surgery. People make jokes on Facebook all the time about about Keith, still outliving everybody. And it's funny. Those memes are funny, but the sad reality is that he is human. He is going to go someday, and it's gonna suck because as I consider myself a bona fide Stones fanatic. As far as the title, world's greatest rock and roll band, I'd give it to them, even over the Beatles, which is shocking to some people. But you got to remember, it's like the Beatles stopped touring and they went into the studio and were strictly a studio band. The last performance we got out of them, they did a batch of songs way up on a roof in London. Not exactly rock and roll. I mean, the Stones have been playing frickin' stadium tours just year after year, and it's like it's relentless. And you wonder, as you get older, I'm 58 now, pushing 59, and it's a workout for me just to even go to a Stones concert. It really is. It's like an endurance test. Getting everything ready, getting to the show, getting situated, and you feel like, well, damn, if these guys are in their 70s, if they could get out there and kick some ass and wear me out, and I'm like young enough to be one of their sons, say that's pretty freaking awesome. And you know how it is. A lot of people were making jokes. We saw the Stones in 2015 on the Zip Code tour. I know I was going to grab that poster off the wall. It was cool because we got like a black and gold tongue, for the Steelers colors. But we saw them in 2015, and people were making jokes like, "Oh, the tour's sponsored by Depends," and it's like I think I was even making jokes too, along the way. But when you get out there and you see them, it's like there is nothing old about the Stones in concert. You just feel like these guys just totally kick ass, and I'm sure it's the same way with other older artists like Bruce Springsteen, and even you gotta love Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan is going to be a skeleton, and he's still going to be doing the Never-Ending Tour with Charlie Sexton and Tony Garnier on bass and all those guys. But it's sad that Charlie's gone. Part of the big thrill when we saw the Stones in 2015, of course I'm thinking, Mick on vocals, Keith and Ronnie. I love how they weave in and out. They take turns like playing lead and rhythm guitar. They've been doing it for so many years now. They've got it down to a science. Some people prefer the era of the band when Mick Taylor, was in it. That was more of a raw sound. I could see the attraction there. But I kind of like the Stones when they became a full band with backup singers and additional musicians. I just think the sound is so freaking awesome. So, Charlie's gone, but the Stones have left behind this amazing legacy of music. I did a recent post on Facebook for my friends about how I think the Stones had the ultimate run in rock and roll history from 1968 to 1981. And we're talking Beggars Banquet, Let It Bleed, Exile on Main Street, Goat's Head Soup, It's Only Rock and Roll, Black and Blue, Some Girls, Emotional Rescue, and tattoo you. Pretty good, huh? Did I leave anything out? I don't think so. But I mean, to me, the Beatles' later years, I don't know what it is. It's like, I don't think there was so much of like a great hard rock band that gets you like moving. And the point being is, I always make this analogy. Like if you pull up at a red light in a car and there's a hot chick pulls up next to you, or if you're a chick and a guy pulls up next to you, vice versa, and they're jamming some Stones, and you're hearing a song like Monkey Man, and you're like, or it's great dance music, like something like Hot Stuff or even Miss You. These are great jams. Brown Sugar. And if somebody pulls up and they're playing Beatles and you get Maxwell Silver Hammer, you're like, or Octopus's Garden, Obla Di Obla Da. You're like, oh man. It's just, I don't know. I went through my Beatles phase. Beatles was the first band that I got into. But during their studio years, I really don't revisit that music that much. But I keep the Stones in constant rotation all the time. I'm always, if I'm taking a look, if I even run out to the grocery store, it's only a frickin' 10-15 minute ride. I'm taking one Stones album with me just in case. That's how it is. But when it comes to the Beatles, I might go back and revisit the White Album and some of the earlier stuff like Revolver and Rubber Soul, even Help. I mean, I still love that stuff. I could go back to that, but Abbey Road, Let It Be, Sgt. Pepper's, and I'm sorry, but Magical Mystery Tour has to be the worst album cover, like, of all time. I mean, what the hell were they thinking? But they were furries or something. I mean, it was just a little crazy. But I got a whole bunch of Stone stuff out here. One of the cool things, I guess, obviously I want to show off some stuff here. Seeing them on the Zip Code tour, I love getting coffee mugs when I see a band. This was one. I should have gotten a coffee mug when I was there at the show, but I remember leaving the stadium, leaving Heinz Field, and I'm like, I saw the line of people, and I'm like, I'll get one later. It took me 2 years to get this frickin' mug and find it on eBay somewhere. I also got this one recently from their site. They have a Sticky Fingers mug, which is cool. I got this Big Stones book years ago, and that's awesome. I recently since after Charlie passed, I got this biography on him called Sympathy for the Drummer, Why Charlie Watts Matters. There's some great stories in there. I'll get to that. Of course, everyone's been sharing the story about Charlie Watts punching Mick Jagger out. Well, yeah, there's a great punchline to that story that a lot of people miss. Another great thing about the Stones, once upon a time, the only live album they had was Get Your Ya-Ya's Out and Love You Live. Well, thank God those days have come and gone, because it used to be kind of a curse. I don't know, maybe some older guys and gals remember that it was like if you put cameras on the Stones, it was like they were going to give a bad show. And for years it was hard to capture them live and be like, oh, this is how great they are live. But that all changed one night. They did 4 flicks. I have a worn out copy here. The package, the box is kind of torn and frayed, to quote one of their songs. But it has the 4 DVDs. You got 3 shows on there. What is it? One show from one from London, one from Paris, and one from Madison Square Garden. I mean, these are epic shows with a lot of deep cuts. I have Sticky Fingers on vinyl. I wish I had an old copy with the workable, the functional zipper. Yes, that would be cool. But no, I just picked one up. What else I got out here? Anything that I'm missing? It was nice to get the Rolling Stones. Let me get. It's time for the glasses. It was nice to get Havana Moon, because this is basically from the Zip Code tour when they were doing this. I think this was the last show they did for the Zip Code tour in Cuba, and this is basically the set list we got with the maybe a few differences. Instead of You Got the Silver, we got Before They Make Me Run. You know, it was how awesome was it to see frickin' Keith, you know, do Happy. That is just such a cool damn song. Um, they came out, of course, with Jumpin' Jack Flash, and that's another thing. I mean, it's not like, you know, I'm not a seasoned veteran when it comes to seeing big bands, and I've seen a lot of bands around the world in all my travels in the military. I was in the Air Force for 10 years. I saw Bruce Springsteen in Germany. When I was up in Boston, I saw Paul Simon's Graceland tour. When I was in tech school in Biloxi, Mississippi, I saw Bob Seger when he was touring Behind the Distance. That's when Shame on the Moon was all over the radio. I saw Paul McCartney at the Citrus Bowl in Orlando, Florida. So I've seen all these, you know, big, huge bands. I've seen U2 twice. I saw the 360 tour here at Heinz Field with that giant monster claw thing. It takes up the whole stadium. But there's something about seeing the Stones. I think my girlfriend and I were just sitting there. It's like they come out and the music kicks in and your jaw drops. You're like, there is nothing bigger than the frickin' Stones. You know, they did All Down the Line. I mean, you know, some people might try to say, oh, they're just a nostalgia band. But of course they work in a couple, you know, new songs. Usually Doom and Gloom, Out of Control. Speaking of, you know, Charlie passing, they were working on an album. That song they put out, Ghost Town. We're going to see one more album out of the Stones, and obviously, since every tour is like documented on DVD and Blu-ray now, eventually we'll see the No Filter tour, which will be cool, especially since we were scheduled to see the Stones on the No Filter tour last summer, and COVID hit. So that show got postponed. It's coming up on October 6th, but now, you know, since Charlie passed, I don't know if I'm going to go or not. I don't know. I'd like to see them one more time, but God, it would have been so cool to see them, you know, one of the last times with Charlie still on drums. For me, that was a big part of the attraction of the show. Where, you know, as a musician, I play bass guitar, but I love studying what other people do and other musicians. And it's fun to learn about guys like, about Charlie Watts and Ringo Starr. You're talking guys who get huge crowds off with a simple drum kit. I mean, almost a basic damn drum kit. You're talking snare, bass, floor tom, you know, a couple mid toms, hi-hat, and a couple cymbals. and if you could get everybody on their feet dancing their ass off, you know, as Dave Grohl said in the Ringo Starr video, he said, you're badass. I mean, really. And, you know, it was fun to see. The song we got by request in Pittsburgh was Painted Black. And it was so cool to see Charlie just, you know, buying away, you know, the rhythm for that. Plus, you know, Sympathy for the Devil. So, I mean, there's a lot of music. Vinyl-wise, you know, since I got into vinyl a couple years ago, I've been getting some cool Stone stuff. I recently got Goat's Head Soup, the version that's on clear vinyl, so that's pretty cool. Another thing is I love the alternate artwork with the, I know some people probably like grossed out by the goat in the pot, but I think that really should have been the original title instead of, what is it, like mixed face and a sheer scarf or something. But I mean, this is a great album with you know, lesser known songs. Plus, you get the album full of outtakes: Scarlet with Jimmy Page, Crisscross, All the Rage. On the inside of the gatefold, it has all the pictures, including the one that was actually used for the cover. But I'm partial to the Goat's Head. I kind of dig it. Also, I gotta be careful with this one. This is dangerous. Beggar's Banquet, the 50th anniversary, and it's dangerous because the album drops through like the sleeve that way from top to bottom. which my girlfriend picked it up, and of course it fell out, and I'm like freaking out. I don't know how. I used to love the Bathroom Graffiti cover, and then I ended up liking the original cover, which they have on the outer sleeve now. But it has the original gatefold with that little decadent feast in there. For some reason, I don't know if you could see it really good, but Charlie is in drag. Charlie, what a good sport Charlie was. Charlie would do anything. You know, when you think of the cover of Get Your Yayas Out, if you ever take a close look at it, if you think of the cover, you know it's Charlie on the, you know, Charlie dressed up, I think like he's wearing one of Mick's, I think his Uncle Sam hat. You got a donkey with the bass drum, but if you look closely, frickin' Charlie Watts is wearing a t-shirt with boobs on it. It's the funniest damn thing. But Beggar's Banquet was one of the first albums I got into with the Stones. And I mean, this was their identity. Songs like, you know, everybody knows Street Fighting Man and Sympathy for the Devil. But I'm talking like the lesser known songs that are more bluesy, like Stray Cat Blues, Parachute Woman. This is some nasty, raunchy, you know, greasy rock. I mean, this is something that the Beatles, you know, when you think of like Abbey Road, does that you know, can you think of a cohesive theme that ties all those songs together? No, it's kind of like a mishmash. But the Stones, once they got into the groove, there was no looking back. Going back to this last record store day, the main thing I had to get, and I was lucky to get it, was the anniversary of Hot Rocks. This was like their first greatest hits back in 1971, so it's cool. It comes with all kind of cool artwork, lithographs inside. It's still fun to listen to, even though I have Grr, you know, I have the 80-track version. I have one beef with that, and I don't know if anybody else caught this. When people talk about underrated albums from the Stones, a lot of people bring up Goat's Head Soup, but for me, Black and Blue was such a frickin' awesome album. And even on Grr, which has 80 tracks, the only song from Black and Blue is Fool to Cry. I'm like, no Hot Stuff, no Hand of Fate, Crazy Mama, I don't know, that's just Memory Motel, Melody. That's one of my favorite albums. Probably one of the biggest albums of all time, and if, you know, for my generation, Some Girls back in 1978, the Stones just dominated that summer. All you heard on the radio was Miss You, Shattered, Beast of Burden. They were on Saturday Night Live. I think they did When the Whip Comes Down, and I think they did Some Girls. But just awesome album cover. This was considered a huge comeback, and I don't know why, because like I said, the album before it, Black and Blue, I thought was one of their best. But I don't know. I don't know who gets to decide what's the best. Speaking of record store day, I ended up picking this up, Metamorphosis. I wasn't even sure what was on it. So all I know, being a Stones fan, I was like, shit, I'm getting it. And there's a lot of cool B-sides and rarities on here. And yeah, I mean, this is just a fun listen. Plus, it actually comes with a iron-on transfer. If that's your thing, you want to make your own T-shirt. I might get around to that someday. I don't know. The only thing I don't have on vinyl that I have, that's a must-have in my collection, is Exile on Main Street. Probably one of the best double albums ever, and Let It Bleed. You know, and it's like every song on Let It Bleed is just a, you know, just a masterpiece. Recently, the box set came out for Tattoo You, and Tattoo You being one of my favorite albums, I'm like, I'm going all in. I'm going all out. I got the Super Deluxe Edition. You have the original album that's remastered. You have an album of outtakes, and you have a triple album of the entire Still Life concert. So that will be cool to have. I think there's a picture disc with that too. Not 100% sure on that, but we shall see. I can't wait. I can't wait to get that. When I do get the box set of Tattoo You, I'll do an unboxing video for that, and that'll be fun to look through. But from all the people out there who are in the Stones, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the band's going to do now after they finish the No Filter tour, the North American leg. Who knows? They might keep using. I think they're using Keith Richards' drummer, and he's been around the band for years, so they might still keep going on. I mean, it's up to them. At this point, if they decide to call it a day, that would be cool too. But it just sucks. Charlie was such a, when you think of guys and when you think of rock stars, who are classy, distinguished gentlemen. I mean, Charlie was the kind of guy who, when the Stones went to the Playboy Mansion, Charlie was such a faithful guy to his wife Shirley. They were married for 57 years. Charlie wouldn't even hang out with the Playboy bunnies. I think he ended up spending all his time in the game room, just to, I mean, that's the kind of guy he was. And guys know when it comes to temptation, the best way to deal with it is don't be there. So. One last thing I want to add in at the end. Everyone's sharing that story about Charlie knocking out Mick Jagger. One of the funniest things about that, because Mick wasn't a big drinker, so here they are in Amsterdam. Mick and Keith go out about the town, and Keith knows this. I think maybe Keith, this is in the '80s when the Stones weren't getting along very well, so Keith may have been a malicious thought on his part to get Mick wasted, since he couldn't handle his booze. So they get back to the hotel. It's like 5 a.m. and as you know, Mick Jagger calls up Charlie. I think he's up on the floor upstairs, and he's like, Mick's all drunk. He's like, "Where's my drummer?" and Keith is begging Mick to stop. He's like, you don't want to mess with Charlie. You don't want to bother him. And so he does this a couple times. Mick calls him back up. He's like, "Where's my drummer?" So Charlie Watts, 5 in the morning, wakes up out of a dead sleep, gets showered, puts a suit on, tie, everything. Even frickin' shines his shoes. I mean, you were one suave dude when you take the time to shine your shoes before you kick somebody's ass. So, it's funny to hear Keith tell the story. So there's a knock on the door. Sure enough, Charlie comes in, and Keith's like, the dude's dressed to the nines, man. He's like, he's all dressed up, his shoes are shined, you could smell his cologne. And he looks at Keith, and he's like, Charlie grabs Mick by the lapel and says, don't ever call me your fucking drummer. He's like, you're my singer. And he gives him a right hook, and he punches him so hard, Mick falls backward. He falls back on the table. On the table is a big platter of smoked salmon, and Mick is sliding straight out the window, and he would fall into the river in Amsterdam. Now, of course, Keith stopped him, but the whole punchline of the story, a lot of people leave out. The only reason that Keith stopped him was Mick was wearing Keith's wedding jacket. When they went out that night, Mick asked him if he had a jacket, and he's like, "Oh, here, you could wear this. This was my wedding jacket." And that's all Keith could think of was like, "Oh, hell no." And I mean, Keith even had to plead to Charlie to stop beating Mick's ass, but like, "Would you please stop? He's wearing the jacket I got married in." So that's one of my favorite stories. So everybody take care, peace out. I'll see you.